pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, roll call please, Carol.
Steve Beardsley,
Present.
Mike Bright,
Present.
Grant Fuller,
Present.
Joe Palmer,
Present.
Megan Sheets, Clarence Worthen,
Present.
Eric Woods.
Okay, and if everybody sees their cookie in front of them, we're supporting small business. That's my favorite thing to do. Allison Robinson in the clerk treasurer's office, if you look on the back, she makes cookies and street sweets. So I asked her to make those for everyone and have them tonight. Thank you. Any way we can, I always support them. The boutiques, the food. I'm all about it. Okay, were there any public comments? Nothing? Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and dismiss, or
We
recess.
haven't done the minutes.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna get, okay, minutes.
We're
I
moving
am.
the
I think somebody told me to get out of here quickly. Okay. Minutes from January 24th, 2022.
I'll make the motion, we approve the minutes from January 24th.
Second. Okay.
I heard Mike.
Mine's got a second. Okay. Roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Mike Bright,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Aye.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Okay, minutes are approved. Next, I'm going to recess the council meeting at 7:03 for the public hearing on ordinance number 22-01, and that's for an additional appropriation for the street department. Do you have the figures on that? I do. Okay. And that additional appropriation is $6,145 under personal services, which would be if we get the new 3 new full-time employees. Also $50,000 additional appropriation for dump fees, because every year it seems like we fall behind on dump fees. So those are the things that we would like to talk about this evening. Is there any comments or questions or anything on that? Okay, I will close the public hearing and open the council meeting at 7:05. Next on the agenda is ordinance number 22-01 and its second reading on the additional appropriations.
I move we pass ordinance 2221 on second reading.
Is there a second?
I'll second the motion of passing ordinance 2201 on second reading.
Roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Grant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Okay, next on the agenda is ordinance number 22-02. This is on second reading.
Make a motion that we suspend the rules and pass 22-01, or 02 on first or second and third reading. I'll second it.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Grant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye. Make a motion that we pass ordinance 22-02 on second and third reading.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Grant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen,
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Okay, I asked Jason to come this evening, and he was gonna talk to you about a situation that we have at the street department and filling those 3 positions along with the part-time. So Jason, do you want to come up and talk to them a little bit about that?
Thank you all for what you're done with that ordinance. It's gonna help our department out tremendously. I really appreciate it. What I wanted to talk to you about in regards to the department further is, right now I have an employee that's been on workman's comp, for almost 9 months now. She's, one of our part-time employees. And what I was hoping to do, tonight was possibly be able to, keep her on as a part-time employee. It would help me in regards to the additional 3 full-time employees. The third full-time employee was actually supposed to be her. And obviously the situation we're in right now, having an extra person once she comes off workman's comp would be absolutely huge for the department. Going into annexation in a few years, we're gonna need that 4th person at that time, but she's on workman's comp. She's been going to her therapy recently, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She had another doctor's follow-up today, and hopefully she'll be back to work fairly soon. But what I was trying to do, and I've worked with Christina and talked to the mayor and my councilmatic committee a little bit about it, was to possibly keep her on part-time when she comes back. And that would be at no additional monies coming from the existing budget. I would be able to take care of that through the end of the year with what I have and what you guys have all appropriated me in 2022. Trash responsibilities are obviously most important, and having to use any kind of full-time employee on the back of the trash truck takes away from what we're able to do elsewhere. Obviously, the 3 full-time will help tremendously, giving those extra hours. But what that'll do, it will give me an opportunity to decide who I want to make those 3 full-time employees, and at what point in time I do that. So just coming to you today to basically talk about Shirley, see if we could possibly keep her on part-time moving forward once she comes off workman's compensation.
So you're saying no additional monies this year, but we would just have to have an additional
Yeah.
part-time appropriation for
Yeah, I would revisit that in budget season, when we start in July or August.
And like you said, she's currently under workers' comp. So we have her there. She's working the shack or something. Yeah, I think you have her doing some duties.
Yes.
And she was currently part-time anyway.
Mhm.
Yes.
She's not ready to come back. He needs the 3 full-time. He has 4 part-time right now. He'd move 3 into full-time, but then when she comes off of workers' comp, that's what he's saying. He would like to keep her as part-time, and he has the money within his budget because we're not gonna have the 3 full-times for the entire year. Probably
Let's
start.
keep that part-time money appropriated for 1 part-time person. I actually only have been using 3 part-time for quite some time, waiting to see what the decision would be from you all in reference to the full-time, rather than hiring somebody and turn around and letting them go. The mayor and I sit down and talk about how important that extra part-time, that extra 28 hours would be for the department in regards to trash.
I would vote for this motion that we would just keep her part-time. I'll second.
Is there any other discussion on that?
I'll be happy to try to answer some questions if anybody has anything.
I have some salary figures, payroll figures, if anyone's interested in that. Right, currently we have 22 pays left this year. If we base this on 21 pays, another part-time position would be $14,700 plus the FICA for that he would have to find that money within his budget to move into that line item.
It should have because of, you're not using, we figured all that off of 3 full-times for the full year.
If I could add, I
Or
don't know,
5
if
part-times, so.
Right?
I don't dig as deep as you guys do, but if I could add, as of right now, the full-time employees that we would be bringing on, 2 of them would not even be taking our city insurance. So that would help us on that end as well, I believe, in regards to health insurance.
The other question is making sure that there's a line item within the salary ordinance for a part-timer within your budget. And I did talk to Carol about that, and there is, so.
Yeah, it's just listed as part-time on your salary ordinance, which we use it for any part-time person, not.
Within the city, yes.
And I would acknowledge that, the vote for this is really just concerning this year. I know we don't know this far in advance what's gonna come into play as of next January. I mean, we certainly would, if we pass this, it would be based on our hope that it could continue into the next year and the plans that you put forth. But, there's no additional appropriations for that this year. And I also applaud Jason for, he's got the numbers in his budget. This could have all been done without, allotting these employees, without coming to us this evening. So I appreciate his transparency in asking us for that. So we have a motion and a second, I believe.
Yes. Yes. I just felt that it was important that everybody understood what direction that Jason would like to go. I don't want you to think that, we were upfront with you. I just wanted you to know the situation we're in. It's not something we expected, but it's where we are with this workers' comp claim right now. So, okay, is there any other?
The only thing I would add is the workers' comp has created the problem that we have to deal with, so.
We don't know how long that would last, but
No, but that's the reason I know that when me and Jason had our talk, that's one of the reasons that we decided to try to go this. So,
does anybody have anything else? Okay, roll call please.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Grant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye.
Mayor, if I could, and speak on something like, Board of Works, just to kind of fill the council in. You all have given a capital improvement purchase for me for a 1-ton, in, the budget this year. I started looking at, getting quotes for that particular truck, and right now, nobody's accepting any kind of quote or accepting anything with the chip situation in the trucks. I hope that changes at a later time, obviously, but I do want you to know that money is still obviously sitting there, and that's what it's going to be used for. It's just a matter of when. I spoke to a dealer in Lebanon and also the dealership in Lafayette that I've talked to in the past, and both of them gave me the same answer. So they said to go ahead and put together what we want and get that to them, and they would get to us, get to me and let me know when we can make a decision to move forward on that. Right now, we're kind of stuck where we're at until later on, which obviously if we can get it, the main thing is to hopefully get it ordered and stuff before the end of the year. But yeah, so far that's not going to be possible. Usually it takes 3 to 4 to 5 months to get it in once we do get it ordered anyway. So but I just want to make you guys aware of that situation.
And did everyone get the email from Jason? You talked about that as well.
I gave,
NDOT.
I think I sent that to my councilman committee, and I think I sent it to Eric as well. On Saturday, the mayor was getting all kinds of calls. I was getting a few calls. Christina called me about it. But the area in front of, what I consider still McKinley, which I believe it is, in front of the Vintage Cafe, was in really bad shape with the weather, and obviously the amount of traffic that we're getting from 28, the amount of truck traffic we're getting from 28. It's obviously done a lot of damage to Clinton Street. We had a collapse down in front of the American Legion several months ago, shortly after that started. But I reached out to Gary Fox from NDOT, and I copied all of you, and you copied Les this evening on it, just to let you know that we're working to try to get NDOT to take a look at those sections of roadway to repair those. Obviously, the timeframe, the timing has to be correct as well. Being the fact that they're bad now, we still have another year of this, when they move to the, east side of Jackson Street, but I wanted to be as upfront as I could with all of them, and I got a nice reply from Gary Fox and the fact that they might be able to use, some of the patch money that they have incurred into the State Road 28 project to help us with that. That's not patching our road, I asked for milling and resurface of those locations. So hopefully, he said we were talking about that in the next progress meeting, so I'm looking forward to sitting down with him. I also copied E&B paving, Melissa Holder, as well on that, but just kind of wanted to let you know where we were at with that. And I didn't think we could be too forward in trying to get something like that accomplished. And obviously, I think that's in Joe's area. So we've talked many times, as well as Eric, about what we're dealing with down there. And so hopefully we can get something done there on that end with NDOT.
Thank you, Jason, for checking into that as well, for taking care of that the other day.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, we have resolution number 22-01, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Frankfort, Indiana, approving certain matters in connection with the amendment of an economic development area and plan. Russ, do you want to talk to us about that a little bit?
Sure. This resolution was actually prepared by Rich Starkey. It's in connection with the bond issue for the aquatic center. And well, that's part of it anyway. But it has to do with the declaratory resolution that the RDC passed, I think, back in November on the 22nd.
Yes.
And that was declaratory resolution 21-04. So I asked Carol to give you copies of those, and several months have gone by to see what you would be approving. And if you turn to the last page, that's Exhibit A, you would be approving the two projects noted there. The first one is the Frankfort Aquatic Center project, estimated cost up to $10 million to be financed entirely by issuance of bonds. And then the second project is the Prairie Creek Entertainment Project, which would call for distributing through the RDC for entertainment purposes, I think mostly in connection with the Prairie Creek Park, $100,000 in any calendar year. So your resolution 2201 approves the declaratory resolution, and then there is a public hearing set on this matter for the 24th of February before the Redevelopment Commission for the confirmatory resolution.
Are there any questions on that?
So that's what we ask them to do here.
The motion would be to pass resolution number 22-01, which approves the RDC's declaratory resolution.
Which approves this one?
Yes.
2104.
The one I just handed out to the
2104.
regular meeting.
Okay. Okay.
Because the RDC passed that last November sometime. So
Okay.
then now it has to come to the council
Okay. So it's already been approved by the,
by the RDC.
RDC.
And then it comes to the council, which is an amendment to the economic development plan.
And usually these things move a little faster than waiting from November to February, but this one kind of has some hurdles.
I'll make that motion that we approve resolution 2201.
Second.
I'll second.
Okay, roll call please.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Mike Bright.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets. Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Okay, resolution 22-01 passes. Under old business, I was gonna have a discussion tonight, maybe, and I think you all got a copy, didn't you, of that resolution without a number?
Yes.
Okay, concerning using the ARPA funds for the aquatic center and the police station. But I don't think we're ready to even bring that before the council at this point. There's still some other questions that we need answers. Anybody have any?
Let me just address that briefly, Mayor. We had been operating on these ARPA funds under the Treasury Department's interim rule, and they have now handed down their final rule, which goes into effect on April 22nd of this year. I think the date on the second page references April 22nd of 2021, which actually becomes effective April 22nd of this year. But it has broadened and given clarity to the use of ARPA funds. A great deal with respect to capital expenditures. They're supposed to still be tied to COVID-related matters. But we're still taking a look at that, and I wanted the council to have an opportunity to review that and think about it. I'm going to hand out, and you can take these home with you, I guess. Now, this is just a couple of pages of the Treasury Department's overview. And it helps explain how they've clarified, or they say they've clarified it, but it's 421 pages still. And when you get to certain parts of it, as you read through it, it references other parts, but there's no table of contents and there's no index to find these references.
I don't think I've already read this.
But on that, I think the first page I gave you, does it say public sector capacity up at the top? So that first paragraph, for instance, says recipients may use SLFRF funding to restore and bolster public sector capacity, which supports government's ability to deliver critical COVID-19 services. There are three main categories of eligible uses to bolster public sector capacity and workforce. And you see the first one there is public safety, which can certainly tie in, I would think, to the police station project. Down below that are service-related things, but on the next page, what I wanted to call your attention to is there are certain enumerated projects that the U.S. Treasury has listed that has their blessing, and there are other projects that they would classify as not enumerated. And there's a little table down there. And if you're not an enumerated project, then those are pretty much direct COVID related things like COVID test centers and hospitals and that type of thing. But there's a threshold amount there of $1 million in that table. So if a project is less than $1 million, it actually is presumed to be compliant without necessity of submitting a written justification or following up with reports as to the expenditure. So you can look through that, and I've also got a call into Rich Starkey. Thought they might have someone in their firm who specializes in the ARPA funds. So if part of them are used for the aquatic center and part for the police station, which we have discussed, it might be very important. On that $1 million threshold, though, for instance, on the aquatic center, if $1 million were to be used on that, you might want to think about making it $990,000.
Well, that was a question. The header on that first column says total capital expenditures. Is that just capital expenditures out of the ARPA funds or the total project?
I would interpret it as out of the ARPA funds. But like I'm not an expert in that.
I agree.
You can go on the internet and look through this Treasury regulation.
So you
It's
think if we
something
did
else.
like 999,000 to that, then we could still do whatever we want to do with another project. would
Yes.
be okay per project.
Now, the rule doesn't become effective until April 22nd, but they do have also in their regulations and guidelines that you nevertheless can go ahead and rely on the provisions of it. I had some other material, but I didn't want to burden you with all of it here. Let me just read this part. Treasury will require projects with total expected capital expenditure costs of $1 million or greater undergo additional analysis to justify their capital expenditures. Increased reporting requirements will be required for projects that are larger in size, as well as projects that are not enumerated as eligible by Treasury, with certain exceptions for tribal governments discussed below. Smaller projects with total expected capital expenditures below $1 million will not be required to undergo capital analysis to justify their capital expenditure, as such projects will be presumed to be reasonably proportional, provided that they are responding to a harm caused or exacerbated by public health emergency. And that is designed to minimize administrative burdens. Some of these things are really wild in here that they have enumerated. Los Angeles County will further invest in its Care First Jails Last program, which seeks to replace arrest and incarceration responses with health interventions. So there's all kinds of this type of thing in there. We're going back to Eric's question about do you look at the cost of the total project? I don't think you do. I would think they would look at how you're allocating the funds, so how they're allocated in proportion to the whole total project, but we'll see on that. But the resolution I prepared with and asked Carol not to put a number on it was just to see how I would see this thing playing out if we end up doing it.
Anybody have any other questions for Les on that? So it may be something that we bring back to you next meeting or so as we move forward on it. Did you want to go ahead and talk about this?
Sure.
I've also asked Les to check on the redistricting for 2022. It's something that's been brought to our attention, and so he's done his research on it, and he's going to explain to you a little bit about how we move forward on that, or how you would like to move forward.
I had several maps made and had them reproduced, and you should have those in front of you. One is Frankfurt Council districts, of which there are 5. So you should have that one. And there's one that depicts the Clinton County. It's spelled incorrectly on the top there, precincts. And then there's one that shows Clinton County census tracts for 2020. Although you can't decipher too much from that because the tracks are so small. And then I had a blow up of the precincts. Now, we have an ordinance that defines by legal description and by map where our 5 council precincts are. And every 10 years, the Census Bureau conducts its census. And by Indiana statute, we are to take a look at our council districts as the county is with the precincts that they oversee, and try to make an attempt to assure that we maintain as equal a representation population-wise as possible without crossing precinct lines and without crossing census lines or census tract lines. So 10 years ago, this came up, and we actually used a little firm in Bloomington to run it through their process. And if you look at the one that looks like this, you will see that over to the right side in magenta, there is some encroachment of P16 into P18. And that's right along the west side of Mace Road, across from the high school, and encompasses a part of the National Homes Edition. And that was brought in at that time as a recommendation by that firm to help equalize between 18 and 16. And then if you look toward the center, the same thing happens in P8. Part of that is in magenta and part of it is in green. So there is some overlap there. And I talked to Jim Moyer about that to see from a polling and voting stance if that has created any disruption or problems with polling or voting. And he said it has not. He said it takes a little more effort during caucus issues to sort that out, but it has not caused any real problem, and he didn't see it as a problem going forward. Anyway, the statute says that we can either amend the ordinance, it's the second year following the end of the 10-year census period, which would be this year, to more equalize the population representation, or we can simply recertify what we have had. So if we recertify, we would still have those two little sections that overlap, where council districts overlap precincts. And if we decide to amend the ordinance, we could go back to the way it was, if you're more comfortable with that, thinking that there are additional houses being constructed on the southeast side of Frankfort that'll help populate what I think is District 4. Or just wait another 10 years. Now, the annexation out west is not effective for another 2.5 years. That will automatically come into district, whichever one is on the west there, District 3, by statute and by ordinance. The only thing that I didn't see that was included was I used to call it the back nine of the golf course when we obtained that portion of the golf course along Burlington Avenue and on the south side of County Road 100 North. That's not included in a district, but there's no population there, so I don't see that as a concern. There's a little area on the north side of Michigan Town Road, up in that far right corner, that I was concerned may not be in there, but it is. That's the Arrowhead addition. It was brought in several years ago. So I just wanted to bring that to the council's attention, and the mayor did as well, and see what the council's preferences in terms of going forward.
My question, Les, would be, District 3, would that go all the way out to the interstate then, when the annexation goes in?
Yes,
And that wouldn't change the population that much?
it wouldn't matter for another 7 years after that,
Okay,
when the census 10-year period comes up again.
okay, so we really don't have to consider that now.
So back to 10 years ago, we more equalized the representation by population, but in doing so, crossed precinct lines in 2 places. So the question is, would you rather cross the 2 precinct lines to, or give more preference to equalizing population representation? The statute does say that you can cross a precinct line if it is to better equalize representation. So
Les, have you seen the population numbers from the census?
no, all I was able to get, I have spent hours going through
the internet trying to find out. In fact, I called the what is it, the Census Bureau, U.S. Census Bureau, and actually had someone respond by email. I was trying to get the population counts for those 4 tracks that you see there, 95, 05, 06, 07, and 08 on the county tracks map. And I also wanted a blow up of that to see how we were doing in terms of crossing census tract lines. And I did get a very nice email back, but they were not able to help me. They just referenced the regulations and that type of thing. So I really can't tell you where we are in terms of the census tract lines.
So you said the minimum requirement for this 10 years is that we address the ordinance that defines.
If we have to do something, we either have to amend the ordinance or recertify it as it is.
Okay. So until we get census data or hire someone to go dig it out.
But we're supposed to do it this year.
So do we hire somebody to do that like we did?
Well, we could, I guess. The problem is, even if we do that, the county probably is not going to change its precinct lines because they didn't change them this year, it's my understanding, to reflect those 2 overlapping council districts. So we could change our districts again, and if the precincts don't change, we may be even farther out of whack on the track lines.
Would we be in line just to recertify without spending anything else though, if everybody is okay with it? And again,
I think so.
because I mean, I'm not looking to spend more money for a consultant if everybody's happy with it and we can do that. But at the same time, if anybody sees any problems with it as is, we should address those as well.
And as he said, he spoke with Jim Warrior, it's not a huge problem. I mean, just they make sure when they go for caucus on a position. they put the right
Jim, I think from his standpoint of running, or helping to run elections, would of course like to see the district lines match the precinct lines. But he said if that can't be done, they can get along. He's gotten along with this, and everyone has worked fine with it until now. We're going forward.
But should we get that from the entire election board before we move further? I mean, I know Jim doesn't speak for.
Yeah, that's true. You certainly can have.
Because I know I feel comfortable reaffirming what we have. We can,
Just do it.
so,
But the law is clear that they prefer that the district lines match the precinct lines and not overlap. But you are allowed to encroach if it helps equalize the representation, which this does, but we're using figures that are 10 years old. But probably haven't changed it much.
They have, what was it, 16,700 and something, and I think it used to be like 16,600 and something.
Well, the census count I saw most recently out of this 2020 census was 16,094 is the population of Frankfurt as of that time that was taken. I think it had decreased a little.
It's actually increased,
Has it?
16,715 or 16,422.
That's
And
what I
that's
thought,
the
just a little bit, not much, what, 200,
288.
so not that much.
Well, in order to follow the precinct lines, just on a quick look at it, in District 4 with Southbridge going in and the activity out there, perhaps then the 18 and 8 parts that are in 4 could be put into the existing, like that could go into the 8 could go into 2, the 18 could go into 5 and make up for the
That's how I see it.
population.
That's how I
then
see
it does follow the lines.
Of course, that census was taken 2 years ago.
Yeah.
That's not reflected there, but next time, yeah.
Yeah.
So in 10 years or whenever, by then, some of that should be populated by then with the new housing additions and stuff.
Of course, as Les said, at the time of the census, they weren't yet. And if we're supposed to use that census, I don't know.
The only problem I can think of might happen is if we recertify as they are, and some person wants to run for office and throws a fit because he feels like he's not, we might be into some tussle with that. Other than that, I'm fine with doing it.
Hang around at large, take care of it.
I was gonna say, wherever you move the lines,
You're gonna have that same
problem.
thing. They're gonna, somebody that is currently in that district could have to not be in there anymore. You could have two people that are currently,
Then if you make a change, you still, have the problem with the county, whether they're gonna change the precincts to match your district line, so. So you want us to check with the election board, or?
I think I would sign off on it, with just one month.
I mean, they,
I agree.
How often do they meet? Do they ever meet?
I don't know. I don't even know.
I do not, I know that as after,
Is Jay still on
you
that?
know, after Jay resigned, they had some trouble getting back together and then couldn't get, I don't know where they going.
So
Is
it's Alicia
Is
and,
Alicia on it?
Margaret Alexander.
But if it's not for us and everybody's happy with it, I don't concede just throwing money at another consultant.
That's all you have? Okay, we have Shan Sheridan with us this evening, and he's going to give us some information on the Ready Grant.
I won't take much time, but I always like to start with this Ready presentation is just to remind everyone that Ready Grant is just a another name for, it's your taxpayer dollars. Every dime you talked about tonight is taxpayer dollars. Every dime in this Ready Grant is taxpayers' dollars. Every COVID dollar is taxpayers' dollars. So just like to remind everybody that. So, and this is a $500 million program that the governor, after receiving dollars from the federal COVID relief, the American Rescue Plan, 500 million was then allotted to across the state to choose. Well, it started out as being 10 regions, and then we started playing politics again, and they decided to move it to 17 regions and just fund the entire 17 regions. And so that changed our dynamic because we were going to have $50 million if we won, which we did win, but unfortunately, because of them changing the rules of the game, they allowed everybody to get some type of funding. And so several counties, or several regions, I should say, had less money than we did. So we were we went from 50 million to 30 million. That was going to be allotted to us. So we've had to go back and cut. And so at this point, I want to give you an update that our region body has cut 16,200,000 from the original 50 million. And so we're down to somewhere just around 34 million. We have gone back to the state a couple of times because everybody does, everybody's got the pencil out. For us locally, we had to cut from we did not cut the Meadowbrook development because it's the housing development we think is pretty important, and so does the state because housing is so crucial to the population. To Les's point, the population is the #1 priority for the state of Indiana. And so we're creating new rooftops to get more folks here is so incredibly important. So they didn't want to see us cut that. And so we were able to keep that in at the full 1.5. We did have to cut the Career Tech Center from 1.4 down to $1 million. And at this point, we're kind of in a fluctuation there because of the last negotiations have pretty much fallen through with the Marsh building. So we are now looking at the Centurion Solutions building as a lease type scenario. So that should save us some money, which is a good thing, but we still need, there'll be a need for a lot of rehab. And we are meeting with the superintendents again next week, and Kurt with Wildcat Cooperative. We also cut, we had been, we were receiving some dollars for the Cloverleaf Trail program. That was pretty much completely cut out between Kokomo and Frankfort. That was somewhere around $400,000, but that's, it looks like that's going to be cut out. Well, I should say cut out. They're looking at a second round of funding. The state, as you well know, is in a $545 million surplus that they're planning on giving tax refunds of $125 to every, 3.9 million taxpayers in the state. And so don't quite understand that, but $125 is nice, but it sure would be nice that we could get some of these things funded. I know I'd give mine up if we could just keep them moving forward and funding some of these projects. But regardless, that the governor is saying that there could possibly a round two of READY that would come from state funds and not federal funds. This would be state funds that they accumulated out of more COVID dollars, I would imagine. But regardless, they're asking us on a couple of these projects to pause and stand by and see if we, but I thought our region has done a great job of cutting back. We went from, and there's a lot of projects. So we went from 39 projects down to 27 and in our entire region. And we were able to cut, again, $16,200,000. So that's where we are right now with the READY program. It was months of meetings, work. Clarence was a part of that, and multiple discussions and phone call conferences and consultation. But we had Clarence, Liz Stitzel, Stacy Dollahan from Ivy Tech, Karen Gregerson from the Farmers Bank, and Russ Casper were part of our local contingency that was meeting and met with the regional council. So we're proud of all that group and proud of all the projects, but you win some, you lose some. We felt like we didn't lose. We just felt like we kissed our sister. So it was more of a draw. So sorry, that's good. That's no Louisiana term. So, but it was frustrating. So that you worked that hard and you'd like to get the full funding of the 50 million. Everybody wants you to paint a pretty picture and be nice and stand up in front of the microphone and say, well, we certainly appreciate the state giving us 30 million, but it's frustrating when you work that diligently and they change the rules in the middle of the game and says, no, we're going to pick 10 regions. And that was right up to about 3 days before they made the decision. They said, no, we're just going to give them all the regions something. And by the way, some regions got the full 50 million. Fort Wayne, which already won the regional grant, the regional city grant, Evansville got the full 50 million, and so did South Chicago in the Northwest Indiana area. So it's just frustrating that this is supposed to be a regional grant, but our most urban regions received the full 50 million amount. So that's just been a little bit of a kick in the gut to a lot of us that have worked diligently so that our rural regions could be funded. So, but I'll answer any questions.
What's that gonna break down for our area or our city?
Well, it means that 1.5 million still should be able to go towards the Meadowbrook. Now, this is all matching funds, so we have to match that. So I know that the Finance Committee has been working with the mayor regarding the Meadowbrook project, and and I know city and county have both been working together on the Career Tech Center about matching dollars for that. But all this is matching. So if we can only come up with 500,000, then it would only be another 500, so it'd be million, which that money would go back to the region, which, no, I would much rather keep being able to find a way to match, fully match, just dollar to dollar, up to 1.5
So
billion.
it's 50-50.
Yeah.
What about that multiplier on private monies? Does that?
Yeah, so that does play into the formula, which, for us as F&K developers. So that will be, in fact, we are trying to figure out with the region's legal counsel and the council that we have through HWC, if they can write a check for the difference and find a way to be able to either donate that and then be able to recover that back off of taxes. But if the private developer could write that, then yes, we could match it that way. And we're still trying to get that resolved because That's a good question, because that's a question that we've all asked in our meetings. If you do have a developer, I mean, Kokomo is putting together, you know, a $12 million hotel project. And the developer there has said, hey, we don't want to lose this opportunity. So, you know, can we sweeten the pot if we can put some money in? So, or more money. And they're already putting a lot of money in, but you know, they don't want to lose, they don't want to leave money on the table. So. That's a conference center hotel connected to the championship park, that the baseball field. So that's where we are on that, Joe. Any other questions? Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Shan.
doing what you're doing.
Appreciate it. Anybody have anything else tonight? I think we're in good shape.
Move to adjourn. Thanks for the work.
Hey, you're welcome. Second, okay, thank you, second. Yeah, I think that's nice.
Well, they're moving forward with the land.